Video will look at a tradition in rabbinic literature that the golden calf incident was really God's fault. He's the one to blame. So we'll start with the Babylonian Talmud. What is the meaning of, and the Zahav, the sages of the school of Rabbi Yanai, said that Moses said the following before the Holy One, blessed be He, Master of the universe, because of the gold and silver that you lavished upon Israel during the exodus from Egypt, until they said enough, it was this wealth that caused Israel to make the golden calf. All right. The Gemara offers another analogy. Rabbi Hiya bar Abba said that Rabbi Yohanan said, this is comparable to a person who had a son. He bathed him and anointed him with oil, fed him and gave him drink, and hung a purse of money around his neck. Then he brought his son to the entrance of a brothel. What could the son do to avoid sinning? So this is what God did with Israel, with the golden calf. Okay, it's compared to a father who had a son, he bathed him, etc., etc. He brought him to a prostitute's house. What could the son do except sleep with a prostitute? What do you expect? That's the analogy here. And that is explaining what? This idea that really the golden calf is God's fault, because it's God who lavished Israel with gold and silver, etc. And really that's why they fell into the golden calf sin. And here's another analogy. This is comparable to a person who had a lean but large-limbed cow. At one point he fed it lupins, a choice food, and soon thereafter the cow was kicking him. He said to the cow, "Who caused you to begin kicking me, if not the lupins I fed you?" Here too the sin was caused by an abundance of goods. Okay? So again, they're trying to blame the golden calf incident on God. Rabbi Shmuel bar Nahmani said that Rabbi Yonatan said, from where in the Torah is it derived that the Holy One, blessed be He, ultimately conceded to Moses that the reason for the sin of the golden calf was indeed the riches lavished upon Israel, as it is stated, and I gave them an abundance of silver and gold, which they used for the Baal. So they're saying God admitted that Moses was right, it was my fault. Really, it was my fault. Again, and what's this all comparable to? Again, they said a father had a son, he bathed him, anointed him, etc., brought him to a prostitute's house. What could the son do except sleep with the prostitute? And that is comparable to God, who lavished Israel with riches and riches. What could Israel do except worship a golden calf? What could they do? It's really God's fault. And God admits to Moses, yeah, it was really my fault. And similar with the incident of Elijah. Okay. Rabbi Elazar said that Elijah spoke impertinently towards God on high, as it is stated, you have turned their hearts backward, claiming that God caused Israel to sin. That's what the rabbi interprets it as. On this topic, Rabbi Shmuel bar Rabbi Yitzhak said, from where do we know that the Holy One, blessed be He, ultimately conceded to Elijah that he was correct? As it is written in a future prophecy, those with whom I have dealt in wickedness. God states that He caused Israel to act wickedly. So again, they're trying to put the blame on God, even for the Elijah incident. Right, worshipping Baal and this and that. It's not really our fault, it's God's fault. And God admits that Elijah was right, apparently. And all this narrative is being crafted by misreading the Bible, twisting it. This is a Midrash Rabbah, Exodus Rabbah. Okay, and the reference is Exodus Rabbah 43:7. On this version, it's page 502, and then we go to page 503 as well. We have the same tradition. That thou hast brought forth out of the land of Egypt. What was his idea in mentioning here the going out of Egypt? Because it was thus that Moses pleaded, Lord of the universe, see from which place thou hast brought them out, from Egypt, where everyone worships lambs. Rabbi Huna said in the name of Rabbi Yohanan, it can be compared to a wise man who opened a perfumery shop for his son in a street frequented by harlots. So he opened a perfume shop for his son in a street frequented by prostitutes. A lot of prostitutes used to go to that street. The street did its work. The business also did its share, and his youth likewise contributed its part, with the result that the son fell into evil ways. When the father came and caught him amidst the prostitutes, he began to shout, I will slay thee. But his friend was there, and he said, Thou wert the means of destroying the character of this youth, and yet thou dost shout at him. Thou didst ignore all other professions, and hast taught him only to be a perfumer, and thou didst forsake all other districts, and hast opened a shop for him just in the street where prostitutes dwell. This is what Moses said, Lord of the universe, thou didst ignore the entire world, and hast caused thy children to be enslaved only in Egypt, where all worshipped lambs, and from whom thy children have learned to do corruptly. It is for this reason that they have also made a calf. And for this reason does it say that thou hast brought forth out of the land of Egypt, as if to say, bear in mind whence thou hast brought them forth. So in other words, the Israelites lived in Egypt. God caused them to live in Egypt, and everyone was worshipping lambs in Egypt. And that's why it's just inevitable that the Israelites would end up making the golden calf and worshipping this. And they say this is comparable to a father who chose a perfume, where a perfume shop as a profession. I don't know what the relevance of that is. Maybe that attracts prostitutes, or maybe prostitutes come to buy a perfume. I don't know. Probably some cultural thing back in those days. But anyway, he made this shop in a place where hookers, basically prostitutes, are everywhere. So what could the son do? But eventually he would fall into the sin. And then when the father catches him with prostitutes and he tries to rebuke him, the friend says, it's really your fault. You're the reason he's in this situation. You brought him to the street. How dare you shout at him? And that is comparable to God letting Israel be enslaved by Egypt. It was only inevitable that they would worship the golden calf. God has no right to rebuke them. It was inevitable. It was all God's fault. SubhanAllah, what is this? What is this? And with that we finish. Allah is above this. The fault was the Jews who did this. It was their fault. The ones who engaged in it, it was their fault. Not God's.